I will say that it is extremely many ties that are linking us, Ukraine and Russia. I mean, cultural, spiritual, economical, and really it is hundreds and hundreds of years of joint history. Some are saying that we have three different breeds of Russians, one in the south, one in the west, Belarusians and Russians. Well, and this is true because in Ukraine, mainly more than 50% of the population after 1990, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, were speaking Russian language. In my view, Ukraine and Russia used to be and still are a kind of a part of two parts of one entity. Well, first of all, in the Soviet Union, there was no issue about nationalism at all. I'm from the Soviet Union and I can confirm that. But nationalism after the breakup of the Soviet Union has started to develop itself in several parts of the former Soviet Union, especially in Ukraine. Initially, we were very, very skeptical. We did believe that it was a kind of childish games, but it then turned out into the semi-military camps which later on became nationalistic battalions, and nationalism was growing up in Ukraine quickly. By 2004, that was the first Maidan revolution in Ukraine, we noticed that it has got some features anti-Russian. And it is becoming more and more anti-Russian because the government of Ukraine has started to reduce links with Russia. It said that the goal is NATO and European Union, and we have seen very alarming things. After that, the West countries, they have tried to reinforce this feature, this trend, very seriously. And idealistically, the government of Ukraine believed that as quick as it will cut off its ties with Russia and run to the West, then it will be admitted to NATO and the European Union and got billions and billions of profit, billions and billions of benefits from this run. I would say that, as I said, West has favored it very much, and Ukraine, and that was crucial issue, has faced a major killing question. Would you like to stay with Russia? Would you like to go to the West? And that was crucial, of course. This choice was supposed to be crucial. So the game changer was 2014. Of course, the nationalistic government, initially not nationalistic, but the team of Zelensky has come to power on the slogans of let's make peace in the country, let's bring peace to the country. But in fact, this team has taken up the most nationalistic ideology that has come from Transcarpathia and Galicia. And it has become the national ideology. So the multinational Ukraine was supposed to be turned into the mono-ethnic states. And all those who do not believe, who are not Ukrainians, especially Russians, and those who are speaking Russians, were supposed to be alien. Now, these are the roots of the conflict, because many laws have been taken that are prohibiting education in Russian language, use it in a daily life, and discrimination of Russians. Most of all, it is humiliation that Russian people have suffered. Simultaneously, the Kiev government has started an offensive against Russian-speaking areas in the east of the country, Donbass. They sent troops. Donbass people, they did not surrender. They decided to defend themselves. There was offensive, counter-offensive actions and all of that side. It ended in Minsk agreements, in fact. So these are origins of the conflict. Later on, the stage was even more difficult. In short terms, that Ukraine decided to reinforce its army. By the year 2002, they have made up quite the biggest army in Europe, about 250,000. In comparison, Polish army is still about 100,000 only. So just imagine, 250,000. The rearmament of land forces has been accomplished, and the rearmament of air forces and sea forces with the help of the West and on the money paid by the West was in view in a couple of years. And actually, we have seen that the general idea, the general trend is just to make a large-scale offensive against Lugansk and Donetsk, to capture them, to make a bloodbath over there, and Western countries, as we have already seen it earlier, will say they are acting on their own territory. So that's all right, guys. So this is what the situation was in the beginning of 2002. Origins was the question put in front of Ukraine, whether you're with Russia or you are with NATO and European Union. European Union membership was bleak at that time, and it still is. As for NATO membership, that was quite clear because during some NATO summit in 2008, it was said that Ukraine will be in NATO. That was a compromise formulation between US, Germany, and France, because France and Germany was very reluctant to it, but US insisted on it. And Ukraine has aspired it as a goal, political goal, introduced it into domestic law, and then we felt that sooner or later it will happen. And if Ukraine will make this invasion under the umbrella of NATO, so that will be absolutely disaster. I spent 10 years in NATO headquarters itself as a representative over there, and at that time, in the middle of 90s, perhaps even earlier, we did believe that through establishment of a network of partnership with the Western organization, not only bilaterally with Europe, with the United States, but also through this network with multilateral institutions by the West, European Union, NATO, of course, Council of Europe, OSCE as well, some others, economic as well, we can really reintegrate with the West, and in that way we will construct security system which will be lasting and solid and actually will keep everybody out of war. One of the main, there were principles established about that, indivisibility of security. No state is trying to get better security for the sake of the others. All of this has been totally violated by expansion of NATO to our borders, 7 rounds of expansions, and it has come to our border. And actually, we learned that NATO is not a defensive organization, which is tried to prove many times because it has participated in Iraq, against Libya, in Syria, and perhaps not as an organization, but as a platform, as a would say, with these resources and with the other things. So we are aware of the fact that NATO is not, it can be aggressive. Both factors are most important. It's a discrimination, humiliation, and extermination of Russians in Ukraine. The creation out of Ukraine a kind of an instrument, breakthrough instrument against Russia, also important. And of course, being reinforced by NATO, Ukraine will become a very serious factor of destabilization and possibly offensive actions against our state. Minsk agreements, by nature of Minsk agreements, it is a very interesting document. In fact, it was about reintegration of Donetsk and Lugansk areas into Ukraine on some special conditions, which were not very difficult to make. That was local police, local elections, some autonomy from Ukraine, special relations with Russia, which is natural with it. Nothing more than that. But it appeared that while we have concluded Minsk agreements that has been blessed by United Nations resolution, Security Council resolution, which is a very important factor, Russia and Germany and France, these were main mediators of Minsk agreements, we pursued different goals because we tried to implement Minsk agreements in its entity as such and establish and fulfill everything which has been written in it. France and Germany, in fact, that has been recognized by leaders, by the leaders recently, they intended just to conduct never-ended negotiations in order to rearm Ukraine and to make out of Ukraine an instrument, breakthrough instrument, as I have tried to explain it earlier. So it was different, totally different approaches. Ukraine didn't want to implement Minsk agreements either, and of course it sided with France and Germany. And by the way, this is a clear violation of Security Council resolution of this action. And during 8 years, that has been said by Holland. It has been said by Johnson, by the way, as well. Who else? Germany as well has said that they used these 8 years in order to rearm and to reinforce Ukraine with Western aid and Western money. In the meantime, during these eight years of negotiations of Minsk agreements, there were many meetings on the level of political directors, special representatives, and all of that stuff, trying to elaborate different formulations. And we were put on the table, look, we are not moving forward. They said, but Crimea. And so what about Crimea? Crimea has had a referendum. That's 2 million of Russians has, of course, voted to join Russia over there. But every time, every diplomatic effort was in vain. They are saying they cannot do anything just to reinforce Ukraine. And soon it became absolutely clear that is not the goal. It is absolutely compatible goals. All these areas belonged earlier to. It is populated by Russians. It has been built by Russians. The port of Nikolaev has been built by Russians, as well as Odessa and a lot of cities, all the south of Ukraine and the east of Ukraine. But Potemkin, of course, was one of the major builder of this area. So even at that time, so of course, Russia has invested a lot in these areas. And even during the Soviet time, I will say, after breakup of the Soviet time, Russia has invested into Ukraine. The calculation gives about 250 billions of dollars in reducing gas prices, in investment, in credits, which has never been returned, quite a lot, assistance of it, which has never been returned, and most of it has been stolen because corruption in Ukraine, that was also one of the major factors, of course. It's a matter of compromise if you would like to reach something. But at that time, we clearly understand that this is not the goal of the West. And that is why the pronouncement of positions during the councils, that was a normal thing. And there was no diplomatic dialogue because we did have different approaches. But it has started much earlier. It has started earlier 2000, when before the 2002, before the 2003, we and Americans were going like that.
Yes.
After that, we have gone in opposite directions. Yeah. Initially not in the opposite, but it has started to go different routes of it, because Americans would like to dominate in the world, and actually we decided that it is too much. We felt that we are coming to the brink of disaster. I think that it could have happened earlier, but we have had pandemics during 2 years, and it was a certain delay in that. But we formulated what we would like to see, and we sent letters to US, to NATO, and to the OAC, which is of less importance. But in return, we have got answers which boil down to the issue. Let's talk again in 5 groups. Let's talk about the same what we have discussed during 10 years before. What the essence, it makes no sense. Generally, it was about the same. So we consider NATO as an aggressive factor. We would like to return to the basic principles of the OSCE: indivisibility of security indivisibility, as non-interference in internal affairs, respect for security concerns of Russia, and taking into account Ukraine should be, as it stands in its constitution, should be a neutral, non-allied state that that is tolerant to all kind of national minorities, and that treats Russians as others normally. So basically this is what we want at that time and now. It was unacceptable for NATO because the letter from Secretary General of NATO was senseless, absolutely. It was bringing, as I recall, the position of NATO on every stance of it. No, no, and no, let's talk once again. You explain your security concerns, which we were doing during years and years. So just a repetition of the will of it. Americans were a bit more constructive. I don't remember the suggestions, but there were some suggestions that could be seized. But the general attitude was clearly, just forget about that, guys. No, it is clear because during these years, about its UN figures, 12,000 people were killed. Yeah. Among them, about 5,000 of civilians in Donetsk and Lugansk. Among them, 6,000 children. Even during that time, children were born, were grown up, and they have seen all the time constant shelling of Donetsk and Lugansk. For instance, Avdiivka, about which we are talking right now, that was a fortress in the suburbs of Donetsk, a real fortress with artillery which was shelling the central part of Donetsk many times during the day. Of course, it was intolerable. So sooner or later, of course, we have had to take measures. It's an interesting question, of course. I did have a chance to talk to the negotiators who participated in these talks. It was an agreement was on the table. I wouldn't say that it was fully completed, but main provisions of the agreement has been reached and even initialed, some of them initialed on it. It was prepared to do that. When we have seen it, like President Putin explained recently, we have taken a gesture of goodwill and we have withdrawn troops which were close to Kiev. And they have gone to the other positions. The day after that, Ukrainians said, no, this is garbage. All this treaty, all this agreement that we tried to reach, they have achieved their goal. The Ukrainians achieved their goal. Troops were withdrawn from Kiev area. Now this is garbage. I still strongly believe that it has been done under the pressure also by Boris Johnson here. We do not have evidence, but we do remember earlier stories, for instance, in Moldova, in Moldavia, when they were That was a famous Cossack memorandum. They have reached agreement with Moldovan government about Transnistria, about everything. But then Solana, who was at that time head of the European Union, has made a call to the president of Moldova, said no agreements with the Russians, just garbage. It was pressure. Initially it was a pressure from the West on the Ukrainian government. Second, of course, they organized a provocation in Bucha. It's a provocation because it was the bodies were discovered 3 days after Russians has left Bucha. So it's insane just to believe that soldiers that are leaving a village or a small town in all complete order will leave dead bodies after that. That was the end because the government of Ukraine has prohibited to themselves by decree of Zelensky to conduct peace negotiations. There are different initiatives on this side from America, African Union, from Brazil, from India, and all of that side. But actually, these are more general ideas, principles on which one can negotiate. But first of all, there is no strong desire on the part of Kiev. They still aspire that they may continue fighting, of course, and we do not see any clear field at that time on which we can make certain agreements. Ukraine has started its so-called counteroffensive in the beginning of June. They achieved nothing. They have got a couple of square kilometers here and there in 3 places, in fact. Mostly it has been fighted back by the Russian troops. Russian troops has established very serious fortification that are defending a land that is under control. And Ukraine has lost its reserves and best prepared forces for this summer campaign, for this counteroffensive. They are becoming thinner and thinner. The supplies from the West of armament is also becoming thinner. The packages every time they are shortening. Of course, that's the way it's going. It is now. President Putin recently has mentioned that it is about 8 Ukrainians to 1 Russian. Others, and also what we learned that during this summer campaign, Ukrainians lost about 90,000 of people. It's enormously big for them. In any way, this is an offensive operation by Ukrainians, and of course, losses are much bigger on their side because they do not even attack with equipment, with tanks, and they are attacking with small groups, small units, which is of course brings losses in soldiers. The troops that they have sent initially were well trained, best trained reserves. Now they have burned the reserves and the best troops. The call-up that is going right now in Ukraine, it is a major call-up of everybody, but it is untrained, especially reserves, which are not going serious training, and of course they are less and less prepared for serious fighting. We have volunteers. We do not send conscripts in the area or recruits or so on. It is, as the figure is, 300,000 only that has joined armed forces for money. It is not as a call-up since January until now. 300,000, it is only volunteers that joined, especially to get engaged in this special military operation. We are not afraid of, I believe that we are not afraid of Western equipment that has been involved into that. Certainly, of course, tanks, then HIMARS, then ATACMS, which has been discovered right now. Also for the West, it is clear that involvement on the ground by troops. And it is what has been said many times here in London and the US and so on, there will be no troops over there, which makes, of course, all these things mostly dangerous for Ukraine because it's a proxy war. It's a proxy war by the West against Russia. By the hands, you have heard some of the estimation that it is very cheap to use Ukrainian soldiers because Western soldiers do not suffer. There is no casualties for the soldiers, but cheap war, cheap proxy war against Russia. Our resources, they are incomparable with Ukrainian resources. We have unlimited resources given the magnitude of the country, given the human resource and support by many other countries. So I will say that it is simply there is no balance in it. So we have much more. We are 16 times bigger than Ukraine. In all senses. Ukraine has no economy right now, so I hardly can believe how long they will last before it will be the end of it. It is occasional terroristic actions that are conducted by Ukraine, which looks it has no other means to do it. It is just pinpointing thing that do not bring sustainable military result. It is just trying to, I will say, disturb us, unnerve Russia. But this is there is a military expression that is called a disturbing fire. It means when you are striking all the night and you simply do not allow to the civil population to sleep. This is not the case. We see some of these things happening, but we are making our air defense better, preparedness in different fields better, also protecting airfields, unnecessary movement of ships that can be also attacked by Ukrainian submarine forces. So we take measures against this, but in no way these terroristic things, like against Dugina, they do not change balance of forces. It is just an attempt to unnerve us. Nothing has been revealed from investigations that has been conducted by Sweden and Denmark over the year. We didn't got any information about that, but it was a sabotage that has been done by those interested in it. The result was increasing prices in Europe and supply of gas by Americans to Europe for much higher prices. So the result was beneficial for the Americans, of course, and detrimental for Europe. For Europeans. I guess we do not ever revealed what we know about that. Probably Gazprom knows more about that, but they didn't send their own investigation team because it is in the area where they need to get a permission from local authorities, as I understand. But our proposal to join forces, a proposal to conduct joint investigations, they were not accepted. It's senseless. I think it is. We can because of the first pipeline is in order. It can supply gas, but there is no demand for this gas either from Germany or other European countries. So they decided that they do not need it. So they are now they're getting our liquid gas in big quantities, but now they prefer to get this liquid gas for much higher price than the pipe gas. I was standing at the foot of establishment of this mission. It was very difficult, but from the very beginning we were understanding that it will be a tool used by some Western countries, also in terms of intelligence. And also during its functioning, we have seen that there are different teams in it, some 12 or 20, something like that. There were Russians in it, as always, but the area of action for the Russian teams was always inside Ukraine and never on the border or the dividing line or the gray area in it. But we also, from the very beginning, we noticed that the desire of many of these teams was just to penetrate inside the orders of Donetsk and Lugansk armies, to look at what is happening over there and to gather information and, of course, to use it in a way. We also tried to put Russians as coordinators inside who were sitting in Kiev of all this mission. Never achieved. It was always Brits. Brits or Americans or Germans or some closely allied with us. Two of them, at least, are in Donetsk and Lugansk, and investigation is going on. All others has returned back to their own countries, and that's all. They were on contract. Russians has returned back to Moscow. In fact, I will say that I do not know what will be the outcome and when, but I can predict one result that might have happened. Due to all this Western help and assistance, which is going on in terms of budgeting Ukraine and providing more and more weapons, it leads Ukraine to the verge of abyss. Population of Ukraine is now only half of what has been before the conflict. Before the conflict, it was 46 million. Right now, it is around 20, plus 1 or minus 1, something, half. The industry doesn't work at all. Agriculture is diminished by half, I will say, production of agriculture. There is no income for the budget. Budget is now by half is paid by European Union and United States. Next year, it is unpredictable what will be in the budget of Ukraine and how it will stand. So that if this trend is going to continue for some time, then we will get Ukraine as a failed state in the center of Europe. No people to rebuild it, because those even here who are living, they don't want to return. Those living in Germany, 1 million. It is hardly they are very eager to return to empty places. They can provide money from the European Union if US is going to abstain from that, but there is no workers, construction workers who is going to do that. And I hardly believe that business is eagerly to go to Ukraine because it is too risky. And business is very, very cautious about investing into the failed areas. That depends what will be the definition of the victory. And so far, no one, the president has not formulated the definition. There are, I think, that basic conditions for that. First is to provide normal conditions and normal situation for Russians living there. It means that they should securely live over there and do not afraid of other assaults on the part of Ukraine. It is for this area which is under control right now. Second is it's very important that Ukraine will be not an anti-Russian state, but it should have good and normal relations with us, positive relations. I think it is that excludes its participation in NATO. It should be neutral and non-aligned country, friendly with all the others, and having respect for human rights in itself, like every other European country has it, like Belgium, like France, other multinationals like Switzerland, totally tolerant to the minorities and languages and their habits. You know, I lived in Belgium for 10 years, and I have seen it. It is extremely complicated. There are two parliaments, different entities, and absolutely different languages in it. It's Flemish and Wallon has nothing in common. Here you have a different situation, because the majority of people speaks Russian or so-called Surgic, which is also a substitute of Russian language. It's only the very eastern part over there they speak Polish or a kind of Ukraine, which is also compatible with it, possible. But the bulk of Ukraine, still it is an area. So Belgium solution, why do you have two parliaments in Ukraine if it is just easier to communicate as normal as having Russian deputies in the parliament that are representing Russian population over there, having it in normal schools, Hungarians are now fighting for their own schools and for the rights of Hungarians over there. They're not so numerous, but still they are. Romanians are doing the same. So there is no tolerance for minorities. I don't have an answer to this question. That depends on the events, of course, and I feel like it will be a situational solution, not a goal that you established years ago and achieved, but it depends on the situation, of course, like it is. And we need to achieve the goals that we assigned initially. The goals are, of course, as I outlined, as I have already explained. And another goal, which is also important to understand, that this ideology of nationalism, which is very close to Nazism, and this ideology should be abandoned. I'm sure they will never return to Ukraine. So this is a price that Ukraine has to pay for the wrong policy towards Russian. It was a grave mistake to fight against Russia and against Russians. So that's a high price, of course, but they have to pay this price. And these territories has been constitutionally already integrated in Russia, and of course we are not going to leave them. The government in Ukraine will understand that there is no other way but to find a solution to all of that. Conditions are there, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is all. We were never against negotiations, whoever it will lead it is. If they will hold normal elections next year, it is they're supposed to be. So if President Zelensky will abolish the decree by which he prohibited himself to negotiate, then it's an opening way. So initially, it should be an arrangement, security arrangement on Ukraine. And secondly, it should be a new security system, new security arrangement for Europe and US, the West and Russia. We will not disappear from the map. It is we built this security arrangement since '75, after the Cold War, even before the Second World War. So any kind of security arrangement should be existed, a realistic one. A lot can be taken from the old baskets of principles that has been violated gravely by NATO, by those who has pursued these efforts. But a second stage, that will be involvement of other countries in it. I don't believe that anybody is working seriously on main features of the future security architecture, but I can say I hardly believe that NATO will be dissolved. It is convenient for many countries to be inside NATO because it is because of many factors. So let's set that aside. I think that OSCE is going to continue to exist because everybody would like to keep this place. But we also have to re-establish our relationship with the European Union because economically it is vital, not only for us, but for the European Union itself. We have had at the highest point 470 billion of euros of bilateral trade. It's a very big amount. Now it is overwhelmed. And it is in no one's interest. It is, of course, in the future we will have. And generally, we are not against the West. As soon as these grave mistakes will be understood in the West, we can deal with it. It is one side of the medal, but the other side of the medal, it's the strategic course that has been taken, for instance, here by British government, and one-sided support of Ukraine in the crisis. But the crisis will be resolved and detrimentally for Ukraine, not for Ukraine will not be the winning side. So what British government is going to say after that? Is it going to admit its mistake or say, it's for the future government, it's not for us. So we were the guys who were resisting at that time. But now we have a different future. They will never say that we have committed mistake, strategic mistake, but they have committed strategic mistake that they will have to recognize. And we will see the come out of it. I was in Moscow in July, actually, and quite regularly I'm going over there, and I can tell you that I haven't discovered any sign of weakening, of Russia weakening. Sanctions did not work at all. We simply changed the direction of our market efforts to the east, to the south, to the other countries. So we have now different products. Our GDP will be close to 3% this year by January. The growth, 3%. Here in Britain, you know, it is close to zero. In Germany, it is less than zero. So that's the result of what has happened. And what is more important is that for a number of years, our economists were speaking about necessity of restructuring Russian economy instead of buying everything to produce this. Now the situation is objectively has come to the point that we have to cancel our plans of buying everything, but to restart our cars industry, airplanes industry, and all the others, atomic and all what the Soviet Union has had, is a huge boost for production in Russia itself. And last 7 months, the industrial growth is going like that. Yeah, that issue is more difficult, seriously, because these 3 countries are part of NATO, and any conflict with them will mean a conflict with NATO. We fully understand that, but they behave very strangely, I will say, especially those who are, for instance, we have Kaliningrad area, which needs to have a good connection with the mainland of Russia. Litva is doing everything to impede us from this connection. And they're playing a dangerous game, right? A really dangerous game. Same with Latvia, who is intends to expel right now 3,500 of Russians who didn't pass the exams barrier over there. What is it? It is not only discrimination. It is we can call it in very unpleasant terms, I will say. I still hope that European Union will bring to sense these people who are playing more and more dangerous way. Otherwise, we will have to take some means. I do not speak about what kind of means, but of course we will have to take measures as well. Similar place was in Georgia some years ago. What was the result? They lost 20% of territory. A small dog is trying to bite all the time. The big dog, of course, it will be retaliation on the part of the big dog. Yeah, what we do not accept is American domination, absolutely. That's exclusiveness or by the United States, their idea that they can rule the world and rule Europe as well. This is not acceptable. And in fact, there is Beijing, there is Moscow, there is Delhi, New Delhi, India, there is Brazil, of course, and BRICS that has demonstrated recently really serious capabilities because many other countries are trying to join BRICS, seeing it as a future condominium of countries that are all equal, that there is no dominance in it, there has equal role and equal right in decision making. I think it will be the future of it. So we do not deny that there is a G20, of course, with participation of Western countries, but generally G7 tends to be more and more inside looking, not inclusive. Because West does not talk about inclusiveness, which was one of the major, by the way, goals of the West in the past. So this is not inclusive, it is exclusive, I will say, company of countries now. Mm-hmm. They closed all relationships. They cut off not only our economic relations, also cultural, scientific, and all the others. So we still have only one link. It is diplomatic relationship. It is our embassies, and that was the choice by the British government. They decided to do this. It is not our choice, but I don't feel that it is very positive either for the government or for the people. We have nearly 450 years of history of our relationship in different periods of it. Sometimes it was very cool, sometimes it was much better, and they have not been cut, but British government has done everything just to downgrade them. And so it is now up to the British government to think what to do next. You know, it is what happened in Ukraine. It is, in my view, is close to what happened now between Israel and Palestine. In Israel and Palestine, most of ambassadors that I met here, they are saying that the main issue is that Palestinian people was humiliated by Israelis in the settlement and the moves, and don't want to listen to them to it, not to take any interest into account. That was the main problem which has led to this outburst of Hamas over there. Humiliation was also the core of humiliation of Russians, was the core problem in Ukraine. So let's treat every nation equally, and as the Holy Father has said, it's important. It's the most important thing it is. Do not underestimate others.